Today we're going to be finding top dead center on this 1984 Datsun. It's equipped with a Z24 engine, and to do that, what we're going to do today, we're going to pull the number one spark plug, pull that out, and we're going to use a thumb activated ignition starter jumper, and we're going to spin this motor over slowly until we find top dead center on the compression stroke. And when that occurs, we'll get a puff of air out of this spark plug hole. Okay, at this point you should have your truck either in neutral or park with a parking brake on. This is a stick shift. It's in neutral. It's on some plastic service ramps. So we have our, let's see, you can get this to focus. All right, let's see, that's our number one spark plug. This is on the exhaust side. This engine has 2 spark plugs per cylinder. Intake or exhaust is okay. Exhaust on this particular engine is the easiest access. So we have our thumb button to activate the starter with. You hook it to your starter solenoid wire. Let's see, it's down there. Next to there, you kind of see it there. And you gotta be very careful not to bump anything. You only want to go onto the wire that activates that starter solenoid. Alright, so let's see if we can set this down and get some live action going here. Let's see. Where can we put this puppy at? Right here. Let's try that out. Alright, guys. Alright, truck's in neutral. Parking brake's on, the ignition is off. We're not trying to crank the truck up, we're just trying to find top dead center. Alright, so we're going to put our hand down in here, the spark plug hole, and I'm just going to lightly bump this button until we feel some compression. Alright guys, you hear that? That would be our compression. Alright, so now what we want to do, we're going to find the harmonic balancer pointer. Man, that is almost on the money. Alright, let's see if we can focus. Get this camera down. Ooh, bright action here. Let's see here. See, man, there is not a lot of room to work in this little guy here. Alright, let's see. There's a pointer on the timing cover, and there's going to be a mark on our harmonic balancer. Hey, there we go. Zoom in. See that little yellow dot, guys? Let's see. That is our. I'll focus around. All right. Let's see here. That little dot is right on the second point. That's our top dead center mark. Now we're going to rotate this engine over until that dot is on the far right, which is going to be 0 degrees top dead center on the compression stroke. Alright guys, we got the pointer on 0 degrees top dead center, and I don't know if we'll be able to see this on camera. Probably not, just because it's going to be a little hard to see. I doubt I can get the lighting correct for this. Some people, I've heard, friends included, they'll stick a screwdriver down in the spark plug hole. There you go, you can see the top of the piston there. Got a little carbon on it, but this is a 35-year-old truck. And roll the motor over slowly with a screwdriver and watch it till it pushes up. That's fine if it's your personal engine. This one is. I don't like that method, especially working on high-end, high-performance engines. You don't want to nick the coating on the top of the piston or mess threads up. So that you kind of do at your own risk. I personally, you can use a zip tie. It's plastic. That's more suitable. Don't want to do it on a high-end engine and accidentally nick a piston or damage the spark plug threads, or get the screwdriver jammed in the hole because you're trying to spin this engine over by hand with with a either a wrench or socket ratchet. Actually, this engine for me is hard to get to the dampener, so I actually use the power steering nut here that holds the pulley on. Just put a wrench on that guy and just slide it so, and then just spin it over till it's the top dead center. And that's how you do top dead center on this Nissan Z24. This also, it would be the same for other engines. This is a 4-cylinder, so number 1 is going to be the very first piston here. This same for V8, V6. On the V6 and V8 applications, typically the furthest forward cylinder head is going to be your number 1 spark plug. Let's see if we can locate it on this puppy here. Alrighty, it's kind of dark. It's probably going to be hard to see this, but the passenger side bank, you can kind of see it here. Passenger side bank on this engine, this is a 4.6 liter 4-valve Cobra engine. This right hand cylinder head is slightly further forward than the driver's side, making this the number 1 bank on the passenger side. Okay, to remove this shield, there'll be this truck only has a couple, but there's a 10 mil bolts here, another one on right here, there's 2 back here, and there's sway bar bushing mounts. The ones on this truck are 17 millimeter. You can actually just loosen these up on both sides. You do not have to take them all the way out. So they should be loose. Just slide it forward. Let's see if we can get the other side. Voila! Just like that. Alright. This is our oil pump. This is actually a new oil pump I just put in recently. But I did not time it correctly. Got in a hurry, trying to get it done. Bad idea. Take your time. Don't rush through jobs. Do it as quickly as you feel comfortable. It runs fine, makes oil pressure. The only issue is the distributor is driven off of this spindle that's on the other side of this pump, and it is off about 2 teeth, resulting in my ignition timing being advanced too much. So I'm going to be removing this and basically just retiming it. But what I did initially when I took this apart, this is the original oil pump it had in it for 35 years. Oil pressure was a little low, about 10 pounds. Sometimes the oil light would flicker on and off at idle, but ran fine, didn't make any funny noises. But I wanted to correct that. So this is actually a oil pump for a 1990 and up Nissan D21 hardbody. A good friend of mine that is more an Datsun enthusiast and Nissan enthusiast than myself says that the 90 and up Nissan D21 trucks have the same pump, except for their higher volume than what originally came in this truck. So with it having a higher volume, it should increase pressure slightly. So hopefully, I can get many more years out of this. When I took this thing off, though, I had 2 bolts break, one of the long bolts, one of the short bolts. So what I went ahead and did, I decided to just replace all 4 bolts. And what I ended up finding, these are 80 millimeters long, what I replaced it with. And the factory ones in the top are longer, and they need to go in their correct place, are 93 millimeter long. Ended up putting a 90 mil in it. That was fine. It's about a thread and a half shorter, but it tightened up properly and seems to be fine. But we're going to be removing these. Make sure you got a catch pan under this. The first time you remove this, it is going to drip oil out of it, so have you a catch pan ready to go. Alright, so we got all the bolts out. There's only 4. The factory bolts are 12 millimeter. It's already starting to drip oil now. These newer bolts are actually 13. Found that if you do replace them and they're 13, this bottom bolt here will be really close to this housing, and you'll only be able to tighten it up with a wrench, so you won't be able to properly torque that with a torque wrench. But the torque spec is 9 to 11 foot-pounds. I like to kind of be right in the middle and just put it at 10. Alright, so I'm going to take this last bolt out so we can do this one-handed here. It's a magic trick. Alright, that thing don't fall out. Before I can get my hand back up, we'll be alright. Alright, everybody. Okie doke. So he's going to grab this puppy. Look at that thing slide right out. Now the original pump did not slide right out. I had to carefully beat it out with a hammer. It sounds violent, but that sucker was rusted in there, rusted to the bolts, and it's 35 years of rust, man. I tell you, sure was a fun thing to do. All right, here we go. All right, let's see what we got. Yep, I think there's the problem. It's not really a huge problem. There's a punch mark on the spindle gear right here. And when you install it, it needs to line up to the oil hole in there. And if you see, it is just so slightly off center, which resulted in some advanced ignition time. About right there. About right there. Tell you what. That there is about what we need. Take one of these bolts, maybe. Use it for a reference. Look at there. Well, I tell you what. You get that sucker off a tooth, you got some advanced ignition timing. Voila. Yep, that's what you need. I would maybe lightly oil the spindle, a little bit, maybe this gear on the bottom side that slides right out of this pump actually very easily, and boop, pops right on out of there just like so. Stick it back in there. It's geared right. Alright, so that's how you remove it. This one's only been in there a few days. This gasket should be perfectly fine, at least I'm hoping, and if not, I'll find an oil leak. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And it's only been in there a couple days. And let's see here if we can take a gander at this puppy right here. Alright. Tell you what. Let's see here. There we go. You can barely see up in there. Alright, guys. That up there, that flat, that is our distributor drive. Let's see. So if you're looking from the top with the distributor out, it should be in about the 11:30, 11:45 mark. Well, since we're looking on the back side, or the bottom side, it should be in about the 12:30-ish. That's just about right where we're at. So what I'm going to do, it helps if you have an assistant. You can do this one person. The book will tell you to remove the distributor, time this oil pump, put it back in, and then set your distributor back in. I don't necessarily want to pull the distributor out. So what I'm going to do is push the pump back in. I'll have an assistant slightly rotate the rotor button in the distributor and put light pressure on the oil pump, and when they spline together, the oil pump will mate all the way up to this timing cover right here. And just run your bolts in, torque them. I torque mine to 10 foot-pounds. Spec is 9 to 11 foot-pounds. Clean everything off with some brake clean. That way, if it does leak or you have any issues, you'll be able to spot it right away. And that is that's how you go about it. I'll be right back. Alright, so we got distributor splined in with the oil pump spindle drive. So now what we want to do is the pump is seated all the way up against the timing cover up in here. There you go. I'm going to get in here and spray all this off so we can monitor in case we have any leaks in the future. Which this engine does have a couple small leaks. Again, it is 35 years old truck. Alright, so I'm going to be using my Snap-on torque angle. Torque wrench is a fine piece of machinery here. Well, you know, most people, I would believe, know how to use a torque wrench. So we're just going to, yeah, baby, look at that. Ooh, a little too much. That's alright. 10.69 foot-pound. Alright, we're going to go to the next one. Let's see. There you go, 10.2, that'll work. That dog will hunt. Alright. Look at that. Check that out. Bam. 10.02. Alright. Torque spec. Not quite, you ain't able to do the bottom bolt here due to the clearance issue there. It isn't scrubbing it, but you can't get a socket in between them. So I just did a little snug with a little wrench. It's only 10 foot-pounds, which isn't much. So what we want to do now is spray all this off with some brake clean, monitor it. Let's see, we'll go ahead and fire this up, and then I'll come back to the cleaning. I still got my ignition thumb button out there, so we just want to turn it on in here. This is a cold start, so it may run just a touch rough. Alright. Little button here. She's up purring like a kitten. Most importantly, we want to make sure your oil light is not on. And she is not. I'll probably put a manual gauge on this to see if I got a jump in pressure. The old pump, I'm pretty sure the pressure regulating spring was bad, because at times it'd be 25 pounds of oil pressure and then it would just drop off all of a sudden. But we got oil pressure, so she'll live to see another day, and hopefully that helps a few folks. I haven't seen many videos on oil pump replacement, especially in the vehicle, but she's working, guys.